Non-classical has always pushed those fringe areas to explore music that is challenging and different.
I love being able to see traditional instruments that everyone's used to seeing on a concert stage set out in this unique atmosphere. It feels like the rules don't apply.
The Classical Club Night, not your conventional classical experience. The young people are now engaging with this music in an entirely different way. Simply taking music outside of its usual context can transform the feel of a piece of music, strip away its formalities and expand its appeal.
When we think about classical music, we tend to think of it taking place in the traditional concert venue. But now there's a whole new wave of classical musicians who are taking the art form out of the traditional concert hall into new and unusual spaces. I'm going to be meeting some of the classical musicians who are doing exactly that here at a classical club night in East London. I'm going to be finding out what's driving them to take their art form into these new and unusual spaces and what the appeal is of that for young people. Gabriel, what gave you the idea of setting up non-classical?
Well, it was really out of a desire to share contemporary classical music with a broader audience, with a younger audience. I'd noticed that when I had pieces performed like at the traditional kind of classical recital, my friends just wouldn't come. It didn't really fit into their lifestyles, and I thought I've got to just take it to the clubs and the venues where most people are used to going to for music. You know, venues that open later at night, venues where you can have a drink, where it's more informal, where you don't feel trapped in rows of seats, venues that are just kind of more in tune with modern life, really, I'd say. And straight away, there was a marked difference, much younger crowd, and then ever since then, non-classical's been going stronger and stronger, really, with a really good following, and there are plenty of other similar kind of nights happening around London, and we want to kind of, reevaluate how classical music's presented.
You've used the phrase classical music a few times.
Yes.
You've mentioned contemporary classical music a few times. The organisation is called non-classical. It looks like a paradox.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Well, it's basically because I was aware that when people saw the word classical, it gave a lot of, for young people, potentially negative connotations, something that was for people who'd studied it for older generations. So I thought I want to present classical music but in a non-classical way. The fear that maybe people will start talking through a piece is it shouldn't really be taken that seriously, because actually once the musicians start, people are there for the concert and there's incredible focus.
You've been operating now for 14 years. How's it changed?
It does feel like contemporary classical music and even classical music in alternative venues has become a recognised night out for a lot of people. I think it's still a small scene, but it really is a scene, and there are a lot of people who are interested in culture who will come to these nights, and they aren't necessarily people who know classical music. They're people who are just looking for something different, something really exciting, something that will challenge them or inspire them.
Have you taken any flack from the conventional classical world for what you do?
I think some people might be worried, that it's sort of cheapening or sort of, belittling the importance of the music, but I don't think so at all, actually. And with other genres of music, people have very powerful musical experiences in clubs already, and this is just another one of those. But I think we can help each other, inspire each other. Certainly we benefit from the training of the classical performers and the kind of discipline they've gone through. But I think maybe some of those venues as well, they are interested in getting younger audiences. And I've seen, other venues having events that start later or different formats to appeal to younger audiences. So there is some intercommunication, though perhaps, these are two different paths.
Well, Gabriel Prokofiev, thanks very much for talking to me. I must let you go now. I know you've got a busy evening ahead of you.
The thing about non-classical is it's carefully considered programming that takes in a lot of themes from modern art as well as modern music, and does so in a context that is so kind of like visceral and so kind of like crazy. It's like a rock gig.
The kind of connotations that go with going to a classical music concert just don't exist here, and everyone's just kind of doing whatever they want, and they're really listening and really receiving the music. All the judgments are gone, and all these like kind of these rules just disappear when you set it in a place like this.
Well, that was certainly different. It's been a long and very interesting day, and it's given me an awful lot to think about and reflect on, and I'll be doing that back in the office. In this series, we've seen everything from a musical game show to a concerto for drum machines. Does any of it belong to classical music? Well, here and there I've heard echoes of what I understand as classical music, but what really strikes me is the sense of freedom and fun, and the aspiration to be taken seriously as art. There's a new space emerging, defined only by a lack of rules. It doesn't have a name yet, but clearly it's an exciting place to be.